As Jesus' popularity arose, the more people believed in him, yet the more people who wanted to kill him. This story took place when the Feast of Tabernacles was approaching, which is a joyful week-long celebration in September or October when families camped out in temporary shelters to remember God's faithfulness to Israel in the wilderness on the way to the Promised Land. Jesus was with his brothers in Galilee at this time. There, Jesus' brothers said to him that it is better for Jesus and his disciples to go into Judea so that the things they had been doing would be known by the people there. Basically, they were telling Jesus to show himself to the world that he is the Messiah. The people of Jerusalem often looked down on the Jews of Galilee. Since Jesus did most of his miraculous works in Galilee, it gave the religious leaders in Jerusalem another reason to say that Jesus wasn't the Messiah, because he didn't do most of his work in front of the right audience. However, his brothers said so because they themselves did not believe Jesus is the Messiah before his death and resurrection. They even claimed he was out of his mind one time. Jesus refused his brothers by saying, "My time has not yet come. You go up to this feast. I'm not yet going up openly to this feast." When his brothers had gone up, then he also went up to the feast in secret. One day, Jesus took Peter, James, and John his brother up on a high mountain, and he was transfigured in front of them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. And Elijah, an Old Testament prophet who died hundreds of years prior to this event, appeared to them with Moses, who had passed way longer compared to Elijah. And these two prominent figures were talking with Jesus. Seeing all this, the disciples were so afraid that Peter, who saw this, said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here, and let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Tabernacle, or dwelling, is a portable place of worship constructed first by Moses during the first period of wandering in the wilderness in the book of Exodus. While Peter was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice of God came out of the cloud saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him." When God draws near to humans, it is absolutely necessary that his glory should be veiled. No man can see his face and live, hence the cloud. When the disciples heard God's voice, they fell on their faces and were greatly afraid. After that, when they had looked around, they saw no one anymore but only Jesus with themselves. As they came down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them that they should not tell anybody the things they have seen till the Son of Man had risen from the dead. The disciples obeyed, even though they were questioning what the rising from the dead meant in their hearts. Surprisingly, the Jews in Judea were anticipating Jesus. Some said, "He is good." Others said, "He deceives the people." However, no one spoke openly of Jesus for fear of the Jews' leaders because they did not want the people to mention his name. About the middle of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and taught as he always did. Upon hearing him, the Jews marveled, saying, "How does this man know letters, having never studied?" The Jewish leaders knew that Jesus had not studied or been a disciple under a prominent rabbi. Yes, Jesus did not follow the normal and expected course of education for a teacher. Jesus answered them and said, "My doctrine is not mine, but his who sent me." He also said, "Did not Moses give you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. Why do you seek to kill me?" The people answered and said, "You have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you?" The people didn't know that the rulers wanted to kill Jesus because he healed a man on the Sabbath. From here on, there was a debate between Jesus and the people there about judging someone based on appearance. Those who believe in Jesus argued by saying, "When the Christ comes, will he do more signs than these which this man had done?" On the last day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried out, saying, "If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. He who believes in me, As the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. Many from the crowd, when they heard this, said, "Truly, this is the prophet." Others said, "This is the Christ." But some said, "Will the Christ come out of Galilee? Has not the scripture said that the Christ comes from the seed of David and from the town of Bethlehem, where David was?" So there was a division among the people because of him. Little did they know that Jesus was from the seed of David and he was born in Bethlehem. Jesus had a friend back in Nazareth named Lazarus. One day, Lazarus' two sisters sent word to Jesus telling him that his dear friend is very sick, and they asked Jesus to come and heal Lazarus. However, Jesus said, "Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory for this." After 2 days, Jesus told his disciples that Lazarus had fallen asleep, and despite his disciples' concern over his safety, for many religious leaders were seeking to stone him, Jesus decided to go see Lazarus. One funny thing happened here that I would like to mention. When Jesus said Lazarus had fallen asleep, the disciples said, "Master, if he's gone asleep, he'll get a good rest and wake up feeling fine." Jesus was actually talking about death, that his dear friend had passed away, while his disciples thought Jesus was talking about Lazarus taking a nap. Now, when Jesus arrived, Lazarus had already been in his grave for 4 days. Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary was sitting in the house. Now Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Martha honestly stated her disappointment in Jesus' late arrival. She believed that Jesus was able to heal her brother while he was sick yet still alive. Jesus then told Martha, "Your brother will rise again." Martha didn't understand this, but after a very touching conversation with Jesus, Martha called her sister Mary to meet Jesus, and everybody followed them outside of town, thinking Mary would go to Lazarus' tomb to weep there. When the people saw Jesus, they recognized that he was the Jesus everyone had been talking about. Upon arriving at Lazarus' tomb, Jesus ordered to roll the stone that blocked the entrance. Once they had removed the stone, Jesus prayed to the Father and then shouted in front of many people, "Lazarus, come out." And Lazarus, who had died, came out bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Loose him and let him go." Then many of the Jews who had come to Mary and had seen the things Jesus did believed in him, but some of them went away to the Pharisees and told them the things Jesus did. Then, from that day on, they plotted to put Jesus to death. So Jesus no longer walked openly among the Jews, but went from there into the country near the wilderness to a city called Ephraim, and stayed there with his disciples. Both the chief priests and the Pharisees had given a command that if anyone knew where Jesus was, he should report it, that they might seize him. Then, 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, to where Lazarus stayed, and had supper with the family. A great many of the Jews knew that he was there, and they came not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might also see Lazarus, whom Jesus raised from the dead. After the news of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead spread, the chief priests plotted to put Lazarus to death too, because many Jews believe in Jesus because of the miracle that happened to him. The next day, a great multitude that had come to the feast, when they heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him, who entered Jerusalem riding a donkey, as prophesied in the Old Testament. They cried out to Jesus, saying, "Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, the King of Israel." And we Christians know this event as Palm Sunday, a feast a week before Easter to celebrate Christ's triumphal entry into Jerusalem, an event mentioned in each of the 4 Gospels.